Good morning, and welcome to another exciting edition of Day 4 with the man, Frank SCALISH.
We'll try this again.
Yeah, for those listening on iTunes, you missed it. You missed everything. So we went live this morning, and if there's one thing, so we're 168, 69 episodes into this thing, Frank, right?
Yes, we are.
And if there's one thing I've learned about you over our time together, both, that sounds weird, on the internet and in person, you are a man of routine.
Very
and you like
much
to know like what's happening, how's it going. So before, when we went live, we were a little late, and I was like, dude, like something's up with the stream. And I do not feel like you would have delivered an A+ performance, because that would have thrown you off of your game.
It was definitely in my head. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah. Looking like $1 million now. We got a great show today. We're going to talk about current and wind and boat positioning and how that affects fishing, all sorts of cool stuff. But first, first, how was the trip to see the new grandkid? Because that was last week, right? Like immediately after the show, you literally got in the truck with Rachel and drove to North Carolina.
Yeah, it was really cool. The baby's cute as could be, obviously. I'm gonna say that regardless.
Yep.
But she is, and Noah and his wife Sydney, they're doing great, really great. And I got to meet all the firemen where he works and stuff, so it was fun. The baby behaved. I mean, we actually went out every day and did stuff and brought the baby with us, and that little kid was pretty much effortless. Which I have 4 children, as you all know, and there was nothing effortless.
Well, yeah, I mean, we've had what have we had? Three of your? Have we just had Josh and Frank? No, we've had all three. We just haven't had your daughter on.
Right, my daughter hasn't been on yet.
Yeah, I do not picture what Noah, Josh, or Frankie as well-behaved youngsters.
It was troublesome. Let's put it that way.
Say that in the best way possible.
We had, it was like trying to wrangle wild horses and keep them all in line. You know what I mean? I mean, they were just everywhere. I mean, the minute they became mobile, it was like, holy crap, we can't even control them. They go everywhere.
Now, I've always heard, like if you have a crying baby or something, you can just take them out and leave them you just put them in the car and then lock the doors and then go back in and continue shopping, right?
Oh,
is that not how? What?
We are so off the air. No, that is so far from the truth. It isn't funny.
Okay, never mind. I don't have any kids. There's Mark calling me back to troubleshoot. Little does he know. Let's shoot Mark.
He's
never mind. I troubleshooted it.
Or troubleshot.
Is it troubleshot?
I would say troubleshot or shoot it. I don't know.
I said, never mind. I troubleshot it myself. And then Ric Flair woo gif.
All right. There you go. We're in.
Like woo, like I did it.
Yeah. Like Yahoo. Success.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Speaking about success, you got a giant the other day, dude.
Yeah. See, look, I said. You'd appreciate that.
Oh my God, that is so. This the way this show started is just beyond me.
Okay, no. So we started up by saying we swapped pictures. So Jeffries hasn't experienced scope yet. He's got, I think, Gen 1 Lowrance.
Okay.
So he has it like on his boat, but he doesn't know what he's looking at, nothing. And he's been going to all these lakes in the area and not doing very well with the old flipping and pitching and water willow stuff. So I said, so when I get on a good scope bite, I'll let you know. And then I was like, well, I got an open coming up. And then I go up north and he's like, oh, great. So just no time for Mark. You know how he is. And I was like, crap, I got to get this guy on the damn boat. And then I was supposed to have him on the boat last week, but but then I had to go get my power brakes put on. And he's like, oh, so now you're putting money and sponsors over old Mark Jeffries. And I was like, yeah, no, I really am.
Yeah,
I felt doubly bad for that. And then I was supposed to take him out again. And then G Gilliland, I ended up going out with Gene anyway. So I called him. I didn't do a show yesterday morning because I did Drew Gill the night before.
Gotcha.
And I said, Mark, can you be at this boat ramp at 6:30 a.m.? Sure. Yeah. I said, okay. I said, I got to be home early. He goes, so did he. So he had to be at school. I had to be back by 10. So we just had like a couple hours. And I was fairly confident that we could get on some scope in some 3 to 5 pounders, right? Perfect. And, he stands up front. I mean, he just owns the front deck of a boat because, he's like when big, Jeffries, when Jeffries stands on a bass boat, this is his shape. That's Jeffries, just a hulking figure. Right. Most people it's just like big giant. And he's like, oh, he gets in kind of aggressive. Show me. Yep. I'm here to see what this is all about.
And he didn't knock you off the front deck?
No. So he stood up there and I had rods for him and he goes, oh, no, I'm not fishing. He goes, I'm here to observe and to be entertained and to watch it go down. And I said, okay. So I'm like, well, I'm going to go right to the nuts, right off the hopper.
Absolutely. 100%.
Completely neutral. The fish that had been the day before we were catching 4s and 5s, like with 10 fish following them, and you put the bait back down and catch another one like barely nipped at it. So now we're half an hour in and he's like, oh, it's interesting.
Yeah. And so you didn't change his belief system one iota on it.
So then I'm like, okay, well, maybe they're out floating. So I went out to where the day before, you pitch to it, fish sees it coming down, swims up to it, 4.5, 5 pounders. The floaters, as soon as the bait hits the water, are now diving to the bottom. So I'm like, crap, no floaters. So I'm like, all right, well, let's go to some other, the third option, number 3. And we get there and, he's standing up front and I pitch a bait down and you see this fish come out and go back down and it eats it. And it's like a 3.5. And he's like, that was freaking cool. I was like, yeah, really cool. Like, awesome. I finally got one. Right. We go a little further, catch another 3.5. Oh, that was awesome. He's like, okay, I see. And so he goes, well, why are you rotating baits? I said, because I'm trying to figure out, the attitude of the fish, what they'll respond to, the whole 9 yards. So he stayed in there and I said, that's a big one. It's in about 15 foot of water. I said, that's a real big one. He goes, well, catch it. Show me how it's done. So he stayed there. So I pitch a minnow to it. 4 or 5 casts, nothing. And it's staying right on top of this thing. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's a big bass. Pitch another bait to it. No reaction. Pick up another bait, get it down to it, pop it once, and the thing just lights it up. I mean, you watch it just go woo, 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 2 like big tail kicks. And I said, I got her. And it's just down there going doom, doom, doom. And I said, pretty sure this is a giant bass. And Mark's like, well, how big is it? And I said, I don't know. I said, it's the biggest thing I've hooked this week. And it was one between 8 and 9.
Outstanding.
And it came up and, he got to see the whole thing go down. We landed it. He was like, that's what I came to see. And then right at the end, I caught another 4.
Perfect.
And I dropped him off at the dock at 9 a.m. and we were done.
Perfect. That's cool, man. That's kind of, it's kind of weird because, so I told you Frankie came in town before we went off the air. I told you that Frankie came in town because he can't come up for Father's Day weekend. So we took 2 days to go fishing, and we were bass fishing the day before yesterday, and we were scoping a ton of them, with the minnow baits and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We were scoping a ton of them. And so all of a sudden, we get on this one structural element and there's wood, in the form of stumps, rock. And you could just see crappie everywhere on these offshore stuff. And so we're throwing minnows on jig heads basically. So I go get up there and catch one, dude. there's big crappie here. He throws out there and he swims that thing. And just like you said, you just see him come. They were coming 5 feet to eat it. I mean,
So
they were ripping on it. And so we were catching bass and crappie. It was for 2 days. It was a freak show. And we were driving home yesterday and Frankie goes, you know, what's so crazy, Dad? I go, what up, dude? He goes, do you realize we did nothing but catch fish for 10 hours? It was like, it was just,
I love it when it works out.
Yeah, for 2 days, it was like that, where we just literally caught them. Like if you went 10 casts and didn't have a fish, you were like, what's up? You know what I mean? Which realistically, this is what led me to today's show idea. Because what happened was we had a wind direction the first day that was favorable. All right. And we crushed them. Yesterday, the wind direction was not favorable. And so we were going to go out yesterday specifically for crappie because I got all the kids coming home for the 4th of July weekend, plus there's
fry some up.
Others. Yeah. So, Rach is like, we got to do fish fry and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, I got to go catch crappie. And so we made a game plan change because Frankie and I were originally going to go small.
Is there anything better than going crappie fishing knowing that you have a fish fry that you have to have fish for coming up? Like that's the best feeling in the world because it's like
it's mission.
The hunter gatherer instinct just goes through the roof. When you know that like next Saturday you got 20 people coming over.
Yeah, it kicks in ultra high gear. And so
anyway.
Yeah, so the crazy enough thing was we went right back to where we were catching the biggest crappie, and we let everything go the other day. And so we went right back there and we start scoping around and zero, they were gone. And so I said, you know what? I know where they went. And he goes, how do you figure? And I said, because they did this to me once before. I said, we got to change our location. They're the wind direction. And this is what today's show is going to be about. The wind direction killed the current completely because it was blowing opposite the current. I told him, I said, these fish went to the main lake flat and they're roaming around on the flat. Now the flat's, it's not shallow. It's still 14 feet on top of the flat, but they went on the flat and they spread out. And so we just started scoping them. And once we started doing that, we started knocking the crap out of them. So we had a goal in mind, how many we were going to catch. We reached the goal and we said, well, let's go bass fish now. So, we put everything away, pulled out a couple of bass rods and went to this structural element that I had found a long time ago and never fished it. I never had the opportunity to fish it because I've only fished the place in the winter for crappie. And so we went there and the first day the wind, when I said the wind was in our favor. So I drew this up and I'm just this is just the preliminary. Okay. So I drew this up. So this is the main lake, main river channel.
It says current, sweet spot, and main river channel.
Right. So this is the big flat. Okay. Super steep break. It peters out over here. But on this super steep break, it's loaded. It's just filthy loaded with rock and wood. And then the current's going this way. Okay. So that's the spot. Okay. And so now what happened on the day when I said the wind direction was right, okay, can we see that?
Yep, 100%.
Okay, so the current goes this way. The wind was blowing this way. So what that did was it accelerated the current. So now I have more current washing through this spot, okay? The boat positioning was the most critical component. The boat had to be here. and the
down current of your structural elements.
Correct. So I have the boat facing into the current and facing into the wind. And the cast to catch him was right on where the break started to slope off. So it was a very steep break, and I had to be parallel to that ledge to catch him, because with the accelerated current, the bass sucked down into the rock and were literally laying right on the edge of that break line. They weren't suspending, they weren't doing anything. They were plastered to the bottom. Every now and then you'd see one come out and go back in, but they were plastered to the bottom. So
Yep.
I caught them cranking, throwing football jigs, the usual suspects offshore.
Now, was this an actual river, or was it just a current-driven
No,
fishery?
it's a reservoir. It's a
okay,
reservoir,
but it has
a slight amount of current continually
Okay.
through it. So when I say favorable, wind working with the current,
everything was working with each other, and it was predictable.
very,
And you
very
could hold the boat where you needed to make the juice cast to your structural element. I'm saying that as many times. Drunkswood says I got 2 drinks thus far for structural element.
outstanding. Okay, so I'm going to go into the structural element itself. So this was the only cast on that day to catch them. No matter where you put the boat, you would not catch them unless you were doing this. These yellow lines are the cast. Okay, this is important. Okay, so now let's fast forward to the
next day when you went the next day when it was unfavorable.
So now I have the current going this way, but the wind is going the opposite way. So what this does is it stalls the current. It basically neutralizes it. So you have almost no current in the lake. All right. Now what happened was the bass went from the super steep break to milling around on top of the flat. Okay. And now the only way that we could catch them was to drag through the flat to catch them. They weren't on this. They were all up in here. And so this was the only cast to get them. And if I tried to reverse the boat, spot lock it, and get on the back deck and fish, we couldn't catch them. Could not catch them. They moved completely off. Oh, and the other thing is, wouldn't touch a crankbait.
The day before they would.
And the day before they would rail it. So what happened was the current, the heavy current, put them down in the structure. The slow current, they got up on top and they could mill around freely. So we were throwing minnow style, the jig and minnows on them, scoping them, football jigs. You find them because they were constantly, dude, that was the other crazy thing. With no current, they're constantly moving. They're not just sitting.
Is that because the food isn't coming to them, so they have to go search for it? Less ambush opportunity, more hunting.
Correct. That's it in a nutshell. In fact, that's funny you wrote that because I have my note down there. Bass were moving and hunting. That's my note. Dude, you took the words right out of my mouth. And so what happened was it became more of a game of cat and mouse, because we would scope to find them, and if they were up in the water column, we threw the minnows on them. If they were low in the water column, we threw the football jig on them. And it was crazy because it was like a 1-2 punch, and it was working, So when Frankie was on the trolling motor, he would scope them. And then when I was on the trolling motor, I would scope them, and he would throw the football jig. You know what I mean? So we were constantly doing, both, and we caught them pretty good. And then we ran around. We were catching so many fish. We just said, let's just go places we haven't even looked at. And so that's what we did. And here's the funny thing. You knew in 10 minutes you weren't going to catch them, and you had to leave because for what was going on, the conditions weren't right in those areas. And we would find these little, beautiful little, I'll just call them pots of gold at the end of the rainbow, where you go, oh, we're going to catch them right here. And you catch a half a dozen. And then we move on and we find another little place, go, oh, we're going to catch them over there. And we run over there and we catch a half a dozen. And we were doing this, but because the understanding of how current flows through the system and the understanding of what the wind's doing to that system made everything very predictable. Even when the crappie weren't where they were supposed to be, it was easy to go locate them because their behavior, believe it or not, was the same as the bass's behavior. Mm-hmm. Lack of the current, they got up on top of the flats and started roaming to feed. And so it was really kind of cool. The thing that surprised me probably the most was I figured the crankbait and the jerkbait bite would be off the chart when the fish were roaming, but they just wanted nothing to do with it. When they were sucked down on the cover, they were choking on the crankbait, which was wild to me. And it was funny too, because whenever you're offshore fishing, we've talked in depth about build design on crankbaits, action, how the bait dives down to depth, et cetera, et cetera. We've talked about that in detail. They had a preference to one crankbait and one crankbait only, and that was the fat-free shad number 7. For whatever the reason, the way it was digging, the way it was diving, whatever, they wanted it. We could catch one here and one there on other crankbaits, but they were not as effective. Not saying we didn't catch them on other baits. We did, just nowhere near as effective. And so, so it goes back to that game in bass fishing where if you find them, you got to figure out how to catch them. Just because if you see, especially if you see them, if you can see them down there, which with the advent of, scoping, makes it a little bit easier because you could roll up on a brush pile, a stump row, a rock pile, whatever. Do a couple times, you go, oh yeah, they're there. And then it's up to you to figure it out, what they want to bite. Because they had such a preference. It was kind of weird. If you weren't throwing the right thing, you just didn't get them.
And could you immediately, when you rolled up, see that the bait was in different locations? Like, could you tell, what did the bait look like based on the first day and the second day? Was that what primarily moved the fish, or do you think it was because there was did they just go up on the flat because the bait went up there, or do you think it was because the current? You see what I'm saying there? Like, could you look at it and notice that on your forward facing that it looked different?
Yeah, because I checked the flat out the first day and there
wasn't anything there.
Nothing.
And then at some point overnight, or when that wind changed or something, right, there was then all of a sudden.
I mean, it was a ghost town the day before.
Mm-hmm.
It was literally a ghost town. You go out, get up there and you don't see nothing. And then you get to hard cover, and all of a sudden you're seeing wads of bluegills, you're seeing balls of bait, you're seeing crappie and bass. I mean, all of a sudden, and it's weird because you knew you were not in a good area immediately, and you knew you were in a good location immediately. And so what it did was, like Frankie said, we just caught fish for 10 hours because you don't waste a minute. You know what I mean? You're just not wasting time.
It's cool when you're on a place multiple days. So experience a movement of fish. So this past week, I went on last week, I was on the same fishery like 3 days in a row. I've been fishing a lot, Frank. Getting dialed.
Yeah, I love it.
Dialed. And I went out with one of the guys who had been out the previous day. So the first day I was out there, the previous day I'd been out the week before. There was nothing in the deeper piles. Like there was they weren't there. So then he caught them shallow. So we started on some shallow stuff and they weren't there. So basically I had been out there, then he had been out there, then we went out there together. But I didn't know that he was going to go out there and he didn't know that I had been out there. So we went out and we did two completely opposite things 2 days apart, right?
Perfect.
So he knew what was up shallow, which I didn't, and I knew what wasn't out deep, which he didn't. Anyway, we go up shallow and it doesn't pan out. A couple little ones, I don't know where these freaking fish went. They were here 3 days ago. Like, he's like, let's catch a big uns, lots of them. And I said, well, they weren't out deep. I said, well, maybe they're out deep. We went out deep. The stuff that literally was a ghost town in 72 hours, all the fish that he had been, all the fish that I didn't see 5 days before that were up shallow that he caught 3 days ago. Now he's not catching them. Now they're out on the stuff where they weren't. And he didn't look at that stuff, but I had. So it was cool. You literally could say at some point in this 48 hours between the time I was out there and he was out there, these fish went, okay, we're going to come out here.
Yeah, and
here, it was awesome. It was amazing to see that because they weren't there 72 hours before.
Right, and here, how about how far they move?
Yeah, like, these were moved. They moved a couple football fields.
Yeah, same. They were like literally hundreds of yards from where they were. Like nothing, like a blink of an eye.
Mm-hmm.
They're gone. So it's really cool. You know, multiple days on the same lake give you a really good insight on that lake. And so what happens, this is really good kind of, Matt, because you can equate it to your 4 days of practice or 5 days of practice for your Bassmaster events. If you see how much fish go in a 1 day overnight, then what this will do is now you will never forget this. Okay. Just like I won't, I'll never forget this. So if you have the hunch when you get to the lake, everybody has their preconceived notion when you go to a lake. They're going to be doing this and they're going to be doing that. And you know, they're going to be doing this. Turn on the Bass Live on Wheeler.
Said Frank is breaking it down for them without even watching.
Exactly. 100%. I mean, 100%. But so you always have this preconceived idea when you go to a lake. And when you get there and you start initiating your preconceived notion, there are times when you're right spot on the money, you're 100% accurate, and life is great. And there are times when you're so wrong, you couldn't be more wrong. Okay. But now, knowing what we know now, it's like, okay, now I know exactly where I got to go look. If they're not doing A, then I know I got to go right to B. And you don't have to, you don't have to kind of do everything in between and all kinds of different techniques and everything else, because you with live scope, you see if there's fish there, even if they're plastered to the bottom. If you pay attention, you can see movement. You can see a bass come up and go back down. You'll see one flare out, or you'll see a couple move. So now what happens is you're getting this ability to take if it takes you this much time to break down a body of water, now it's taking you that much time. And so you're getting honed in, and that's kind of exciting to me. I mean, I kind of liked it because go ahead.
What's the most consecutive days you spent on a place? Just either fun fishing or something. Like, what's the most dialed in you've ever been on a body of water where you're like, I know and have witnessed every little move of the fish transitioning?
That's good, Matt, because I spent when I was fishing Bassmasters, I would spend 5-6 days on a lake fishing it, 5 or 6
yeah. And you would figure out, you would literally be able to go like Tuesday they were there, then they stopped on this deal on Wednesday, and I found them here on Thursday.
Yeah, 100%. Like I had a local lake that I got on early before I don't want to say before structure fishing became a thing, because if you talk to Buck Perry, it's been a thing for his whole life. But before structure fishing became cool, um, I got dialed in on this body of water. It's a local lake. And I knew which river ledges, which rock piles, which underwater long tapering points, whatever the element was, structural element was. Do I got to do a drink now? Because I said structural element, or
No,
only
we're
it?
just getting drunk wood hammered.
Oh, there you go. So, so I had this lake so dialed in that I knew if the wind changed, which ones to hit. I knew if it was cloudy, which ones to go to. That's how dialed in I was on this lake.
Yeah.
And that's because of time on the water and experience. And so I put, if I put 4 days on a lake, and let's say I put 4 days on the lake in June, and then I put 4 days on the lake in July, and then 4 days on the lake in August, you could take those information from those 3 months, and you could say, okay, so from spawn, they're going to here in June. From June, they're going to here in July. And then in August, they're already suspending on the pelagics, getting ready to migrate up the creeks. And so you put all this stuff together and you formulate your game plan.
I like it. You didn't by chance happen, if we're just going to talk some more advanced stuff. So I had Drew Gill on Tuesday night, and he was talking about breaking down a current driven fishery, and there was wind, the Chowan River there in North Carolina. And it was real interesting at 22 years old on how he was able to figure out like what part he wanted to be on and all that stuff. And then his biggest thing was, and we did this last week, talked about fluctuating water level.
Yeah.
And they had fluctuating water level. You go back and listen to this show. It's freaking crazy. So at 22, he figured out based on the current and the conditions, what stuff he wanted to be on. He knew he didn't want to be up against the bank on the Cypress because there were billions of them that were all the same and you couldn't do it. He also knew that there's a bunch of floating stuff, or not a bunch of floating, but a bunch of structure and stuff out in the middle of this wide river, but that he had to narrow it down. And what he ended up finding was 45-degree stumps, like where the tree would go all the way down in the water like that.
Yes.
And then based on the water level and the current, he said that fish could stay at the exact same depth and just go up and down. And he goes, if it was vertical, that would change where they are in the column. If it was on the bottom, if it was shallow, he said, but if it was deep and at a 45 and they wanted to be whatever, 3 foot below the surface and blah, blah, they could just literally just slide up and down that. And he said that's where he caught every single fish, was on 45-degree angle trees in the current. And then he didn't have to worry about all the other cypress and all the other water level stuff. And then he said that he would rotate them. And at one point there would be a feeding window, and he just had to make sure he had, and he said all the top guys were all rotating the same 45-degree angle laydowns out in the middle of the river.
That is so sweet, dude. But that's a pattern. You know what I mean? That's what we train ourselves as bass fishermen to look for, is patterns. But that's super cool. That's super cool. That's like, okay, before forward facing sonar, I was on Santee Cooper, and when you go into the swamp over there, it's just nothing but 5 million cypress trees.
Oh yeah.
You have current. There is current in there, but you also have main creek channels, secondary creek channels, and tertiary. The flatter ones closer to the bank, that mostly runoff ditches, or where the current blows through, it scrapes the bottom clean. And so when the first time I ever was on Santee, I ran up the swamp because I had to see it. I had to go look at it. And so I went up there, and it like blew me away. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you know what I mean? There's a million cypress trees. I could flip for 3 years and not
Yep.
cover them all, you know? And then I found a stand of trees. And I said, well, that's an isolated stand of trees. Let me go there because it's isolated, easier to deal with. So I go in this isolated stand of trees and I start flipping these cypress knees, and I'm not getting bit. And I'm like, that's crazy. This is isolated. Well, there was one cypress tree that had a big branch hanging off of it. And so I said, ooh, the branch, horizontal cover. I flip in there, whack, I get one right away. I'm like, okay, I know exactly what I'm doing now. And so I just started trolling motoring through these cypress trees, and any cypress tree that had another piece of wood attached to it horizontally or semi-horizontally had a bass on it. And all of a sudden, this huge forest got really tiny, and it was really easy to pick my way through there and catch fish. So, it's just paying attention to the details, really.
I agree.
So there's a lot of tournaments going on today.
Yeah. I was looking at. Well, the one at Champlain doesn't start for a couple of days, but they're on Wheeler, which is it's ironic. I'm sure you didn't even realize it, but that's exactly as what's going on. Like, you've got the Decatur Flats, you've got ledges, you've got wind, current, whether they're going to run, whether they're going to not. You have a really good structural elements and brush piles and stumps. You have the fish that transition between off of it, up on top on the shell bed, to the stubs, depending on what it is. So you can literally listen to this and then go over and watch it in action
and see it unfold right before your eyes. Hey, I have a question for you, and I'll probably have to call Scott at the Bass Tank for this question.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, like I got my scope set up really good.
Yep.
Good clear mid ground, decent bottom, crappie, bass, bluegill, everything shows up real good. All of a sudden, I started getting that fuzzy triangle that goes down for your cone transducers. Well, cone's the wrong word, but you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, that stitches together to make one picture.
Yeah, so now I get this fuzzy thing there. I got a ghost tree for the first time yesterday. And then all of a sudden, my unit got really super slow and everything got blurry. And then almost like this morning's beginning of show.
And then it'll snap off and be okay.
Yeah. What's up with that?
Did you just do an update or something?
I did. A couple days ago.
Yeah.
But
I'll talk to you about it after the show.
Okay, because I reset everything. But
they are they're kind of aware on it, and it's more so when you're like in super shallow water, like if you're deep and stuff is fine, but if you transition from deep to shallow, it
goes mental,
and then it'll be totally fine for 4 or 5 minutes, and then go poof for another 5 seconds, and then it'll snap out of it.
Yeah, I was coming apart at the seams, Matthew. I don't like when my stuff is in disarray.
I can tell you 100% that has nothing to do with your unit or anything that you do.
I'm sure of it. I'm 100% sure of it. But yeah, so the
good thing is to have someone at the Bass Tank to where when my units do that, I can call and say, hey, I've got this. And then he jumps in the boat and goes, okay. And then goes and troubleshoots it.
I know. I told Frankie yesterday, I said, I have a really gut feeling that I want to drive down to Oklahoma.
No, they can't fix that. Mine's doing it too. And mine are a week old. So
outstanding.
And I think everyone else who has the same deal is doing it. They have a patch to like fix. I don't know. Long story short, they're aware of it.
Okay. Perfect. So at any rate, so disarray. So, okay. So I've been fishing like a madman lately, and I have been so lazy. I've been grabbing bags of soft plastics and literally just throwing them in the boat and then I'm working out of the bags of soft plastics, even though I have all the soft plastics in my boat, nice, neatly arranged in, you know, tackle containers. But it's just was easier just to throw a couple bags in there, and then I don't have to dig in the tackle. I just open the lid, pull the bag out, and whatever.
Yep.
I have so many empty bags of soft
That's
plastic.
good. That's good
I
when
know.
you got the empty bags.
Oh, dude, I gotta go on LureNet. I gotta order 1,000,000 more spine cross. I'm out of everything, dude. The last several times out, I have gone through. Now I know why. I think they should give anglers the option on every soft plastic for 50 bags and 100 bags. I just think it should be available across the board. You know.
Were you planning on transitioning to this? Because we always see what's on LureNet, and it is bulk.
No, I didn't even realize that. That's how.
Here.
So we have bulk going. And see, now this is true. I didn't even know. That is so funny.
All right. So, and ironically, I have a couple of co-eds, some friends back who might describe their college days as this, bulk dingers. But I'm sure they're lovely career women now. But that is what we got right here. Bulk dingers.
Outstanding.
$10.99 for a 30-pack.
Oh yeah, heck yeah! I gotta get in on that.
Yeah, but there's just a couple of colors, I think, in the new colors. Here's a 100-pack of the bulk dinger 100-pack for $27. $30 for 100 of them. $27.99. And I don't think those are special. I think you could use capital BTL24 to get 15% off your order.
You could go to choose option. I want to see colors. Can I see it, or will it not pull?
No, this is look. I am on cranberry right now, green pumpkin, June bug, and you can't see it. That's the weirdest thing I've ever seen. It's always like that. But they have morning dawn, June bug, green pumpkin, chartreuse, watermelon, pearl laminate, cranberry, all in the.
All right.
That's a good color right there, isn't it?
Yeah.
All in that, and then in the 30-pack. A lot of colors in the 30-pack. Morning Dawn, red shad, watermelon seed, green pumpkin, blue fleck, green pumpkin, ghillie suit.
Yeah.
Elders, magic. You've talked about that. Cranberry, Carolina pumpkin, chartreuse, black and blue laminate.
Perfect.
Ooh, okay. Cranberry's got a nice little look to it.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. That's cool. Just like that. Look at that. I didn't even transition to that on purpose.
But I mean, the dingers are probably, as far as a quality bait that is universal and also incredibly affordable, it's a dinger.
Oh, dude, without a doubt. I mean, without a doubt. The funny thing about it is it's a bait you catch fish on year round. Even though it excels from pre-spawn to post-spawn, that's like the heyday of those stick type style baits. But you catch them on them year round. I mean, I do, especially on a lot of the grass lakes. Farther north of here, I'll catch them year round on them and go through them like a lot. Go ahead.
What ways are you like? Are you a wacky worm, Texas rig, and weightless are pretty much the three?
Yeah.
And the Ned.
And the Ned's my biggest one. Believe it or not, the Ned's my biggest one. Weightless, not too much. That's more during the spawn. I'll pitch them around weightless.
You wacky them?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'll do both because
I got a cool new wacky. Just chat for 2 seconds. I'm going to go grab it. I want to see what you think of this.
All right, go ahead. Go ahead. So on the weightless dinger, since you brought it up. So what I'll wind up doing is I'll rig it like the old floating worm technique where you got 18 inches and you put the little swivel up there, 18 inches above it. and I'll fish it like a floating worm, weedless, Texas rigged. I'll rig a weightless one, wacky style, but for me, that particular presentation there is really suited for me during the spawn. Right when they start to spawn to right when they're tailing off the spawn, because you catch a lot of fish that you otherwise won't, just because you have to slow down. You have to be more meticulous with it. All right, you got me going now, Matthew.
I don't even know what brand this is, just full disclosure. It's not
full disclosure. Just
I don't know what it is. It might actually be a dinger. It doesn't really have any sense. Anyway, long story short, I got to go big. So,
go big,
core tackle, Matt Stefford and Jody Schultz. Look at this little number.
Oh, yeah. I have absolutely seen that.
Isn't that interesting?
It's very interesting.
So then you take it right in the middle, and it's weighted, so it's like a weightless wacky, but also a Nico. And then it sits just like that.
Yeah, that's way cool.
And then as it falls, you get your your little
right. It does its
action.
deal.
But yeah, there you go.
Yeah, that's really cool.
I'll be interested in checking that out. I just got a couple packs, but like it I think it's got some merit to it, don't you?
Yeah, I do. It's almost like a flick shake rig, except that with the flick shake, the weight's more towards the head of the hook.
Yep.
Which I like that because nothing's in the way of the hook then. But that's pretty cool. I've seen that before, by the way.
All right. I'm glad we were able to get this in. It actually worked out good, and we don't have to like completely tear down and rebuild your system or make calls to the you still glitch occasionally, just like a little.
Yeah,
I don't know.
That's got me irritated a lot, actually. So I'll have to look into that.
The list of things that Frank gets chapped at. We need to add.
We have to add the
glitching internet.
The list is getting
187.
The list is getting large. Yeah,
all
so
right.
I got some colors I've been working on. I get to put some eyeballs on baits and clear coat them today, and I'm excited about that because, yeah, man, colors are coming out, boys. And
catching
girls.
Fish.
Oh, God,
selling out exclusive signature series colors,
which is cool as hell.
Seeing the grandkid.
Yeah, I mean it's been very busy last 3 weeks.
Life is good.
Yeah, can't complain.
You got no complaints. So you can't let a little bit of a internet glitch dampen your spirits.
It won't.
All right, this has been another edition of Day 4 with the man Frank SCALISH. Wind, current, roamers, positioning, all sorts of good stuff in this
Everything.
one. We'll talk to everybody next week. See ya.